for everything you've been doing for us, for trying to help us, for everything with the reservation, trying to get out, it's cold, trying to get this winter gear out to the people that need it, So that means a lot to us because everything we do means a lot to us. Just seeing our people being able to, not be cold and freezing. So we are going to get this for you, only if you accept. Hold the man, how we appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you.
I definitely appreciate your participation in all this. It's like going a long way. So you just stopped by the Menominee Reservation.
Yeah, let me take you into the classroom.
So like I grew up with a girl who was born and raised up on the reservation, kind of back and forth her whole life. So we had come up here a couple times, like as teenagers and then young adults, things like that. And then, so through her is how we actually ended up getting involved with some of the other outreach programs on the Menominee Reservation. Mm-hmm. And we've noticed the lack of attention that they get. The same that we experience in the city. Mm-hmm. The same, I guess proportionately, the drugs, the criminal atmosphere, the violence. I'd say probably worse, in Chicago and Milwaukee. But I know there's like a lot of domestic abuse on the reservation too. We were driving by and the brother was saying how it looked like Gary, Indiana, boarded up houses, dilapidated houses. So having a shared experience like that with poverty, with drugs, with the violence, with being ignored by, different organizations and like government standings that have the means to help out, but there's no real attention given to it, no real care, which kind of evolves into a breakdown of the community structure. So I wanted to ask, how have you noticed like the cultural relations between like family, like in the community, since your time growing up on the Menominee Res and on the Potawatomi Res? Have you seen it flourish? Have you seen it kind of die down? Because from my experience on the Menominee Res, it seems like the elders that are holding on to the culture, they're not really being supported or sought after by the youth. So it seems like there's, in like a couple of conversations I had with them, there is a concern of them, just kind of letting it slip through their hands as the next generation that normally would have been kind of responsible to keep it alive.
I haven't, I have seen it come a long ways from where it was. The other thing too is, I don't know how much you know about this, but Forest County, Potawatomi, we were the poorest tribe in the state of Wisconsin at one time. And I understand what you're talking about too as far as the city life. My son I raised him till he was 9 in Milwaukee. And I was there for some of my youth growing up to the age of 7, and then went back there with my own son. And so I know exactly what you're talking about. The domestic violence portion, I think a lot of that has to do with generational trauma. So there's that, and it's not affecting just the Menominee tribe. This goes, to a lot of different tribes, and that goes all the way back as far as the boarding schools and what our people had to deal with that. So as far as where they've been since I was young, I've seen a lot of growth there, and they've got a lot of things that we didn't have when I was growing up. Same here. I mean, this facility alone, we didn't have this. This is pretty new. And so as far as, I think that the council members from each tribe, I mean, as you know, they rotate out. They do the best that they can to, for their people. They love their people. And they don't get on there because it's ooh, I'm a council member. They have a lot of love for them, and I haven't met any council member that hasn't on both reservations. These people, even after they leave council, they're usually out in the community still trying to do their best what they can, and so that's all I can say as far as that. The Menominee tribe, from what I saw, they've got this big new beautiful school that's been put in place, and I think there's supposed to be some additions put onto that.
The high school?
That's, yes.
Yeah.
When I went to high school there, it was a lot different. But we had what we needed. They taught trades and things like that. A lot of it was based around the logging. I mean, you had to have seen the beautiful trees coming up 55. They know how to take care of their forests.
Yeah, but I had stopped like 8 times on the way. Check it out.
Look at the stream.
Yeah, that river's amazing.
If you can, are you just going back down that way on the way out? Smoky Falls, stop there. It's gorgeous.
Smoky Falls.
Yeah, there'll be a big yellow sign pointing out. If it's cleared out, it should be. It's beautiful. But yeah, the trees, I mean, they really know how to take care of the forest. You don't see trees like that
Right.
everywhere.
Right, it's like untouched.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. If I could, I wanted to ask you, just hearing you speak on your experience, of course, going amongst the tribes and everything else. I've been on plenty of reservations. I've been to Lakota. I've been to, from here in the Pine Ridge to, down to Arizona. And there's a growing issue on the drug abuse in many reservations. I just want to know, your thoughts on that, your opinion, and what you have seen, you personally being a tribal member, seeing it firsthand. What is the experiences that you have seen amongst, your own people, and their experiences? I want to know, your firsthand experience.
Well, I can speak to the fact that as Forest County Potawatomi tribal member, our youth are targeted. And it's because at one point in time, which was actually within a year ago, the per capitas went into a trust. And then they were given this at the age of 18. That's what happened with me too. But I was raised on the Menominee tribe, so I never seen this kind of money before. And it was handed to me, and I made a lot of mistakes. So what our council is trying to do was, fix those things. They're put out all kinds of different classes and things like that. But that was something that I've seen, and family members, I've seen that this happen too. And, we're all basically like one big family. So, and it's small. So you see these things happening, but to me, they were targeted. Friends who maybe been addicted to drugs and knowing this one's turning 18 or whatever, and going over there and, trying to get them addicted to drugs because they want somebody to take care of their addiction. So things like that. As far as on the Menominee Reservation, I don't know. I think it's because, majority of Native American communities, are low poverty.
Right.
And so it's, needs to make money. And not only that, but I think that it's not necessarily the people, it's outside people coming into the community as well, where they know that there's money to be made. And so, there's that too. But I think a lot of it is just, people going outside of the community, moving away, realizing how hard it was, and then those things, following back to the reservation. In my opinion, that's what I've seen.
Okay.
Bearing on that as well, you speaking on community, do you feel like the community has to be strengthened in a way, or there's something we as natives have to do amongst each other to kind of build back that family aspect, like you were speaking on? Because like it seems to like that has gone away, like not only tribe amongst tribe, but just even within their own selves, even just amongst the Menominee. I can't speak as far as the Potawatomi, but do you feel like that aspect has been lost and we have to try to regain that? Or, in your opinion, what do you think?
I think it's a bit of both. I think that our culture, our language, all of that needs to be strengthened, which I know that our community has been putting a lot of different events out there. There have been a lot more walks going on. There have been more community events. I mean, across the board. I haven't seen what Menominee has been doing. I know that things aren't getting any better, so it takes everybody to be involved in that. Another thing too is we don't have our own police department, so
You don't?
we don't. We're working on it. As far as I know, from what I've heard, we're working on it. And so there's the Menominee tribe, I know that they have a police department. So as far as the community, I think that everybody has to say, enough's enough, and it takes everyone. If you see something, say something. So
Absolutely.
And if I could, go ahead. And speaking on the communities, there is a contrast between the Potawatomi and the Menominee communities. What do you think is the biggest thing that keeps both communities from joining together and making one solid community and using each other as resources to strengthen each other instead of having that division that's there? What do you think, and what do you think is the driving force that keeps the community separate instead of coming together as one to help each other and be more of a solid force?
well, I don't think that there really is a division. I don't know if there's been any type of collaboration in the past with them, as far as the higher ups that can make this type of thing happen. But if somebody is reaching out, they need help. I know that as far as I've seen, our tribe does the best they can. We help out Mo Lake a lot, but I think that that's because how close they are. We're in the same county, so there's a lot of that happens. I don't know. I think that whenever somebody asks for help, that the tribe has done the best that I've seen. I don't know what's all come across the desks, but
I want to ask you,
As an indigenous woman, the missing indigenous women, movement, everything that's been going on with that. How bad is it out here? We heard on the Menominee there's multiple women and children that have gone missing. But as far as the Potawatomi, is it the same thing out here? Is it a little better? Of course, you spoke on not having your own police force. How is it out here concerning that?
I think, and this isn't concrete, but I've heard of things, but it hasn't been here in the community. It's been when they've gone out. But I know I can speak to my little sister Tess. She was living in Milwaukee, and she was pregnant with her first baby, and she was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered. Her people, we later found out, were supposed to be friends, and they took off with her body, and they found my sister in a bean field in the Dakotas. And so, yeah, they caught her killers, and so I'm glad that they're serving life without the possibility of parole. So I feel for anybody who's lost, a sister, because I have, and I know exactly how it feels.
No, you're right. No, we're sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, if we brought up those feelings again, but we appreciate you, being able to answer that, because like we said, the whole point of this is for the world to see this, because these type of stories, they don't make the front page for some reason. It's not in their face as it should. It should be like, the estimate is about 25,000 missing Indigenous women now. Like, it's not on the front page as it should be. And what Commander Johanna is having us do is making sure it reaches people's faces one way or another.
It's funny that you said that, because my sister being missing wasn't newsworthy, but because my family was fighting over where she should be at, that was part of our family's, basically our dirty laundry was out there, and then it became newsworthy. So they broadcasted that nationwide.
Wow.
The familial problems was worthy of the news, but missing an unalive sister was not.
No, they didn't bring up that my sister was missing or anything, or murdered, until that came up, and then it was brought into the news.
No, if I may.
She is built on. Why do you feel like that is? Without saying certain things, it feels like when other people go missing, or when certain things happen to others, it's the attention is spot on. Could it be that the reservations are so off from the major cities and everything else? That's why when an Indigenous person goes missing, it's not talked on about, or is it because a certain view that they have about us as a people? Or what do you think it is that when those type of things happen, they just refuse? It's almost like they don't want to talk about it. Why do you feel like that is, in your personal opinion?
I think it's a little bit of both. I have a cousin who, from the Menominee Reservation on my mom's side, where she was missing, and they later found pieces of her around. And I haven't heard anything as far as on the news about her. And now I seen something posted not too long ago with her bringing up what happened to her and things like that. But it wasn't until this movement happened that it was brought up. And it was brought up from the communities. It's not outside areas, Green Bay News or whatever. It's the communities that are doing it now, because the tribes are working together and this movement's happening. I'm not seeing this movement in the news. And so we've got social media now, and it's the tribes that are pushing this. So if it wasn't for them, I still don't think that there would be any attention brought forward. I'm not seeing it.
Do you feel like
certain resources need to be put together, or like, what is it that for some reason is making these women a target? Like, is it, could it be the drugs and everything else? Could it be the fact that the tribes are lacking a certain type of protection? What could it be that for some reason they're targeting our sisters? That's what we want to get to the bottom of, because like I said, you can't do certain things in certain communities. I'll put it like that. Certain communities, the things like that you just spoke of, you would not be able to get away with. But when it comes to it's almost like it's like our communities have become like a hunting ground to do that type of thing towards us. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think needs to be done? Why do you think that is?
I think it's for the exact same thing that I just said, that they're not broadcasting it, that they're missing. And because of that, it's making it,
Right.
you know, open, yeah. And I know that when my little brother Gamavna was little, we were walking on the Menominee Reservation, and this non-native pulled up to us, and they started taking a bunch of pictures of my brother. And so we got scared. We took him home, and you know, this person was circling around the area. And when my little boy, well, he's grown now, but when James was little, the same thing happened. We were at Apollo on the Menominee Reservation. A non-native spectator came there and started taking a lot of pictures of him when he was in his regalia. And he asked me how much I would sell him for.
What?
I laughed it off thinking it was a joke. He wasn't laughing. I told security that was at the Apollo right away. I had my son get out of his regalia and we left.
That's disgusting.
Sis, that just really caught me by off guard. So I'm sorry. That really just angered me in the most utmost way, because these things do happen, and do you feel like, and this leads into what we want to talk about, because, Thanksgiving just passed by, there's a certain view, it seems almost, when it comes to indigenous people, or how we're viewed, like we're not, not until about the early 1900s, we were viewed as people finally. We were creatures for long. They just called us a few years ago indigenous creatures, So it almost seems like that's what we are to these non-natives. Like we're creatures, we're some type of spectacle that you can just buy and flaunt and look at in the zoo. Like when they drive through the reservations, that's what they're looking at. Do you feel like there's a reason for that, or why that is?
I feel that they think that we're below them, at least. I hate to say that, but even my aunt, who's the youngest out of all her siblings on my mom's side, she had my cousin at a very young age, and while she was in the hospital, the nurse came and told her story that she couldn't have children, and she offered to take her daughter because she assumed that she was so young that she would be willing to just give up her daughter. So these kind of things are open and said. I mean, if you went to, I'm sure that a non-native is not going to, or non-indigenous are not going to be going to each other and saying these type of things, and that it's acceptable. But for some reason, it's acceptable for them to be asking us these questions.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for that answer, because it's a very similar thing when you go into Black and Hispanic communities, because we work amongst all these communities, the Native Americans, Blacks, and Hispanics, because it's so much similarities when it comes to the poverty, when it comes to the conditions we're in, and when it comes to things like that. Like it seems like since the spotlight isn't on us, since we get less resources, they see the ability and they just can't help themselves but look at something like that as I could take advantage, or I could take what I want from these people and nothing will outcome of it. That being said, with everything, all the resources, being put out, everything we're trying to do as indigenous people for not only the lands, but our people, how important do you think this is, the program we're doing out here, on December 14th, Lord allow, we're going to be at the Menominee Casino and Resort giving out clothes. It starts small off like that. But how important do you think, like that's the beginning of something? That's what we're hoping for. Because us and the ISUPK, not only do we do, clothing drives and food drives, but we have drug and rehabilitation programs. alcohol rehabilitation programs,
Prison reformation.
prison reformation, children adoption, security. We provide so many different things, along with building the culture and spirituality. There's so many different things we add to the community, but it starts with things like this. How important do you think, just a clothing drive, just winter provisions to make sure people don't go cold is a beginning? How important do you think that is for tribes and reservations like this?
I think that's extremely important. When I worked at the Boys and Girls Club, there were there was a lot as far as, even when I don't want to say just then, even while growing up, before I turned of age, I was the person, or we used to, wear socks on our hands, to keep warm. And they make fun of it now, and maybe it is funny to us that lived through it. But from the, looking at it, as a mother now, it's not so fun. It's not funny. But wearing bread bags on over your socks and to keep your feet warm. We didn't have sleds. We used to cut cardboard boxes up and use them to go sliding down the hills. So we improvised. And if we had, an organization like you coming, that would have been a godsend. So every little bit helps. And I'm glad that there's an organization like you that are out there doing these things, because you don't know how many the little bitty things, even if it's I know I had gotten thank yous for just donating prizes and pizza and things like that for a lock-in that I sponsored, and how many kids that now have their own kids have said thank you for that and how much it meant to them. So these do matter. It would have mattered for me and my siblings and cousins, and so it's everything.
Absolutely. Like we said before, we don't want to just stop here, but this is the beginning push into have this, because we have these everywhere else. We have these in every major city you can think of, New York, California, we got brothers in Haiti right now, Puerto Rico, that are doing it right now. And so this is a global thing. We have brothers in the UK doing the same thing. And we feel like it's needed on the reservation because, like what you just spoke of, missing indigenous women, the drug, problem amongst us, all these things is the perfect grounds that where we need to rely on each other, the best way I can put it, for community building. And that's what we're all about, is reuniting the family, reuniting the community, because we're stronger together. That's the best way we can put it. We're better than relying on each other. There's no one that can know better the plight than us, right here. Native American, Hispanic, Black man, right here. There's no one that can understand, that story, even though our struggles differ in certain aspects, of course, being indigenous and being Black and Hispanic and everything else, there's certain things that we tackle each on our own aspect, but we tackle them in a certain way together. That makes sense. And my question to you with this is, do you feel like that will benefit the reservation, or do you feel like that would be a negative? Us, coming together, with other communities such as the Hispanic community, where they call them Hispanics, but really they're Native as well. This is their land as well. And the Black community, under a good reproach like we have here, like something that we can, promote positivity in the best way like this. How do you feel like would this benefit, or would this be a negative in your opinion?
I think that it's definitely a positive. And now that you're bringing more awareness to this, I mean, had I known, I know that, my son, he loves to volunteer. I like volunteering. That's something my mom instilled in us. But the Menominee people, the Potawatomi people, they're hardworking, they're loving, and this would bring, even like you said, what would bring them together? This is something that would bring them together, and other tribes as well. You know, it's, and even if you're coming from a tribe that's not low poverty, we still have people and children and women and whoever who are facing their challenges and could use, you know, a lot of what you guys are offering. I think that by coming to our community, and now that I do know, you know, I'll be doing what I can. My son will be doing what he can to let everyone know, you know, exactly what you're doing. I know I was curious the next time I go to Milwaukee of seeing, you know, exactly what you have going on. I already checked your website out and seen, you know, all the good that you guys are doing. So
Right.
I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, and my son as well.
We appreciate you.
You know, that's why we had to come down and, you know, we show our appreciation towards you, because something we noticed in you is something that we noticed in us, and that's the want to help. You know what I mean? I wanted to ask you about that. You, as you know, you seem, at least your spirit, I should say, is very giving, very helpful. Why do you feel that need? What is it in you that feels like you want to give back? You know, I mean, what is it your love for your people? Is it your experience, like how you said, growing up the way you did? Or what is it that drives you into wanting to let us in and help us? Because not gonna lie to you, know, we're not the easy, you know, when people first see us, we're not the easy, you know, we get told we're pretty intimidating, you know, we're pretty, you know, out the character, you know, people, you know, when they see us at the first jump. But then they see us and they experience, oh, y'all not so bad. But you, at the first, you know, sign with my brother Amungabar here, you were able, you know, to get the conversation rolling and get us in here. What made you want to do that, you know, with your experiences to help us get to the reservations to, you know, be able to do this work?
Well, a little bit of it, my mom always, you know, she was always putting us as far as volunteering, donating, and things like that. But I think that I don't think it was for my mom. My mom got that from somewhere. And now that I'm older, I realize it's our people. We're helpers. We'll give the shirts off our backs.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's something that goes across tribal reservations, is that they want to help. And part of it too is, you know, I've lived that life. So if I've got the means to do it now, I will. And I know that my family on this side, my family on the Menominee Reservation, they feel the same way. My cousin is a boxer down there on the Menominee Reservation, and you know, when he has something that he needs as far as sponsorship, I've seen their tribal business, you know, coming forward right away, because that's the pride of their people, and they want to help. And that's how what this is no matter what, you know, poor, rich, the Native American people they've got pride. They've got, you know, but at the same time, they're a humble people. And that's just a part of our culture.
Absolutely, I agree.
I want to go into that as well. You know, I'm not trying to be too long-winded. I'm not trying to hold you here. But, you know, us being a very pride people, you know, like you said, very humble, even at the same time. After all of these years, you know, the Native American has a rich history, you know, such a rich history, such a rich culture amongst all the tribes. Yet we've stayed resilient, we stayed strong, we stayed prideful. How do you think we have been able to do that over the years, even though they've been trying to, the best way I can say is beat it out of us? Because it's been years of fighting, years of, you know, standing strong and trying to do our best for the communities. how do you feel like you as an Indigenous woman, how do you feel like we have been able to do that, to stay strong and to stay basically in the fight for ourselves and our people?
I think because they're resilient. They're when you go somewhere and you can almost tell immediately Native Americans, they have their own sense of humor. And that humor comes with because of everything they've had to, endure. And that I've noticed is it gets stronger. So it's just coping and making sure that, there's one of the things that I saw when working, with the youth. When I was working at the Boys and Girls Club, these kids were, get away from me, whatever. But when you took them out of the community, these ones who would pick on each other and tease, whatever, when you took that group out of the community, they would share with each other. They would, did you pack a good enough lunch? I'll give you some of mine. And to see that was amazing. That's why I loved working with kids, and I still do today, is they're just, they never cease to amaze you. They're sponges. And so the things that they've seen, they've witnessed, just like I did. I think it's something that they've just adapted to, and they've seen the struggles, and they do whatever they can. And to me, it's a culture thing.
That being said, we bring up the youth a lot, and something I do want to ask about it. This one is another hard subject, but the suicide rates. The suicide rates are very high amongst the Menominee. It's very high amongst a lot of Native Americans. Some places, it's really bad. Can you speak on personally your experience with that and the experience here amongst the Potawatomi? I do not know exactly the Potawatomi's experience with the suicide rates here. And I want to ask you, the second-handed question is, why do you think we are feeling this way about ourselves? Because it's a mental issue. It's a form of depression. It's a form of, us feeling something about ourselves and who we are. I want to ask you, why do you think that is?
I think it's not. So you're not supposed to go out and tell your family business. You're not supposed to go out and say this or that, what happens here stays here type of thing. And I think that is something that is an obstacle that needs to be overcome.
Absolutely.
Because I had my best friend, he was from the Stockbridge Menominee Reservation. He committed suicide when we were 14 years old. And I'll tell you this, he was the happiest person I've ever met in my life. I had no idea he felt the way that he felt. And I was with him every single day. And so it was our group of friends. None of us saw that coming. And so I think that it's something that is an unsaid, don't talk about this kind of thing, but really we need to make it okay and out there in all of these communities and saying, if you're feeling this way, this, and make it okay by having more events, bringing it more to the front line and really pushing that, because it's not just our youth, it's adults too. That they're not saying nothing, they're keeping it inside. And it's like we talked about before, we're a real prideful people, not prideful, but and that is something I think that the youth or the the women, men especially, thinking that that makes them less of a person or less strong.
Absolutely.